Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Irish Goodbye podcast. As you know, this is a podcast where we speak to great people who are doing great in their careers, not necessarily CEOs or CFOs, but we don't rule them out either, not necessarily keynote speakers, but people who have crushed a career, have made mistakes, who have learned a lot, and just want to pass that on to the next generation. So today, I'm very, very lucky to be joined by Dale Zwizinski. I've worked with Dale at Oracle. He's an incredible rep, incredible person, incredible mentor and peer. So Dale, please say hello to everybody.
Hey, thanks, Carl. I appreciate you having me on. I love the name of the podcast, The Irish Goodbye. It fits you really well, based on our working at Oracle. So I can appreciate that out in Jersey City, some of the old stomping grounds.
So, well, look, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. As you said, we worked together at Oracle. We were both selling, SaaS service software there. So maybe you could give somebody a very brief overview of your career to date, and
Sure.
maybe we can get an understanding of where you're at in life.
Yeah. So I'm an odd duck when it comes to sales people or in the sales space. I actually wanted to be a coder. So I actually did a bunch of development work when I was in university, played soccer at university, and realized quickly that coding in a dark room with just hanging out by myself coding stuff was not what I wanted to do. So I started getting into business, got into actually deploying software, got into my first startup company probably about 3 years after I got out of university. Really loved the startup world. I really enjoyed doing a little bit of everything. I was actually supposed to go and deploy software out for UBS out in the UK. That was my initial vibe of where I was supposed to go. And the deal fell through, so I ended up doing some work in the U.S. The company was deploying rule engine technology, and I got the startup bug from that day forward. Yes, we worked together at Oracle. We had a good friend that we worked with together, Chris Checkeye. But my passion has always been around the startup company, because I think it's hard when you're trying to build your business, build your organization, build product. And so I always had that startup mentality. I got into sales leadership, and I've done a lot of work in the sales leadership space. And then I realized, as I was doing sales leadership in startup, once I left Oracle, that there were so many good products and so many good founders, but they just didn't know anything about bringing revenue into the organization. Like, how do we drive revenue into the organization? And at that point, about 2.5 years ago, I started up my own business doing fractional revenue leadership. And now we've been going for 2.5, 3 years. And I help all sorts of startups, not only B2B tech companies, but also managed service companies. So I get a huge exposure of different companies now.
I love that. I love people getting in kind of, you're giving back in a more structured way, but I love people that give back. I'm lucky enough to speak at FIU to the Honor Society, and kind of tell really, really smart kids who I never went to college and they do, what it's going to be like when they leave. You look at them looking, you terrified. I was speaking at a few kind of startup weeks, and I've spoken at Boulder Startup Week a couple of times, and just the glassy-eyed look they give you back when you start talking about collecting simple things like collecting data early on.
Yeah.
You listen, there's one guy who had a car wash who was telling us, well, do you have a spreadsheet of just how many times that one guy visits your car wash and when he visits?
Yeah.
And then you can target him to come in on Tuesdays rather than Saturdays when he always comes in. Like, how the fuck do I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These simple things.
It's so funny. I was just talking with another founder earlier today, and blue collar working and taking B2B tech knowledge and bringing it to blue collar is like the next thing. Like, there's so many great opportunities in the blue collar space that could benefit from the B2B SaaS space.
100%. I had a sheetrocking company in Ireland, as you know, and if I knew now what I knew then, I could have scaled that business out.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you realize there's so many transferable things. Like, a lot of people want to say, verticalize, understand your vertical, go inside your vertical. But what I've learned over my career is actually, if you go horizontal and you understand and take the best things of each of the verticals through like you can actually get together much faster, further. You look at something like retail marketing. So I was doing some Oracle stuff, and before that I was doing some predictive modeling, and they would always be ahead of the curve. Price optimization, next best action, all that stuff. And then like SaaS, you go in the SaaS, you're like, well, let's do next best action. They're like, what are you talking about? And so like everyone can learn from each other.
100%. Speaking about learning from each other, I always like to find out if someone had one sort of job along their journey that doesn't necessarily fit the trajectory, but there's something you've really learned from it.
Yeah. I've had a couple of them. I can actually go right from when I was young and like probably wasn't even supposed to be working, but I picked watermelon and corn. And I just think like in that time frame of doing that work, you realize you worked through all weather, rain really sucked, but you just did hard work. And the thing I learned most about that is actually I got cash. So it was an old farmer. The dude was like 75 years old, and we'd have like he'd come out and he'd give you like $250 in cash, and he had his beer fridge, and like go grab a beer and $250. And like I think that in the beginning of when I was working, like to have that cash instead of like a check and like just being able to like do work, I think motivated me to really trajectory out. And then my second job was more in implementation. I was like implementing software. And what I learned from that job was I had a woman in New York City. I was implementing software for a company called American Lawyer, and I was doing the implementation. I was always helping her out, and she would say, I need to do this. I need to get this happening. And I was like, I have to go tell my salesperson, because I was falling behind on the project. I was doing all this work. And she goes, I never want to see my fucking salesperson in this fucking office ever fucking again. All he wants is this fucking commission. And I was like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I have to do like sales can do better. Like we can do better in sales.
And look, well, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what this podcast is about. It was about my continuous learning, right? And 15 years into this role, and 15 years having had a construction company before that, and then I lied my way into a software engineering role before that, and then played rugby before that. So like, it couldn't be more abstract. But if you're not constantly learning, you're screwed.
Yeah,
and
100%.
There's so many people I meet on my journey who are like, what can I learn from them? You can fucking learn anything from anybody.
You can.
Everybody has a fresh approach, an idea, a turn of phrase even, that just unlocks something in somebody else's head.
Yeah, you can. And I think one of the things people forget about is learning from everybody. But I actually went through a phase after I got my master's, I didn't want to do any learning. Like I was so burnt out from it. I was like reading so much and going through so many things. And I think there can be a point where it can be overwhelming. And I liken it to now where like you're hearing about AI, things are happening, people are worried about their job, and it's changing so quickly that actually I've gotten back into a mode of like really wanting to learn, because it's stuff that I don't have a comfort level with. And I think if you get comfortable, I always think the worst salespeople are the people that have been there for like 15 years, and they almost answer the question before the customer asks it. Yeah, they know what's going to be asked. And like once you get to that level, you are done for, because it's going to change. The carpet's going to get pulled out from underneath you.
100%. There doesn't always have to be such a formality to learning either, right? Learning can be along the lines of it can be just passively observing people around you. There's
100%.
another guy I spoke with on this podcast, Murray, and he had this lovely phrase. He said, "You can't be in an echo chamber of acceptance."
Yep. It's a great comment, because then it extends out. So if you are an echo chamber in yourself, but then you are just sitting with the same people all the time, and they're in their own echo chamber. Now you're like going with a crowd versus like, how do I break out from the crowd and learn something completely outside of your comfort zone?
100%. And I think that's something that comes with maturity as well, because
Yeah, that's for sure.
when you're in your 20s, you're full of piss and vinegar, and you want to take on the world, and you know everything. And my grandmother used to have this magnet on her fridge that has teenagers take over the world now and do it while you know everything. So, with that being said, if you met yourself from 20 years ago, what do you think would surprise them most about you now? And what would you like to say to them?
If I met myself from 20 years ago, so that's a really good question. Don't be so stuck in your ways. Like, even myself, as I go through the process, I have had to kick myself out of comfort zones. And one thing that I would never have known is how to be like, I was so gung ho and gung forward about doing things, but it always came at a cost of like not being flexible enough. So I'm like, no, I see it this way. I want to do it this way. And my wife was actually the one that taught me. She's like, dude, you're too inflexible. Like, you don't think of things outside of the realm of like Dale sometimes. So like, free that mind. And so I think, living down in Florida, I would have never thought it. I thought I would probably be up in the Northeast my whole life, because that's where I grew up and that's where I thought. And I'm super grateful that I'm down here. I love the weather every day. All the stuff that I thought I would not like is what I do like. But I think things that are difficult, you'll have a reason of why they were difficult. Like, things that happened 5-10 years ago, and I'm like, they were the most painful things. You realize now, 10 years later, why they happened. Yeah. And I think it's hard when you're in the moment to actually learn that.
Sometimes it's important that they happen.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
If I hadn't lost my construction company, I would never have made it to America.
Yeah.
Right. And my life has turned around. Like you, I'm living in Florida with the sun shines every day. And my parents back in Ireland, the rain's coming in sideways,
Yeah. Yeah. Like you think about things, and as you have, my kids are 20 and 17 now, and you have to allow them to like live their life and go through their process. But you also have to like say to them, like, things happen for a reason. You may not know it now, you may not know it in 3 years from now, but you will know it at some point in time.
Yeah, 100%. And look, as you go through that that process and that evolvement, you meet people along the way. And this is something that I've only kind of alluded to in recent years. But you meet some people along the way, and you think, there's greatness in that person. I can learn from them. There's other people who are like, if I never meet that person again, it'll be too soon. And again, in another interview I did, somebody said one of their biggest mistakes was trusting people too quickly. So, having worked with such a broad spectrum of people throughout your life, how do you separate the ones who will help you from the ones who will hold you back? Because like, some people could be like the grip of a drowning man.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it down, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know. I struggle with that a lot, because I want to be trusting, and I want to believe the best in what's happening in the moment. I think I'm getting better. I think you mentioned as you mature. So as I'm maturing, I'm learning the signs. But I think as a salesperson, we get in this place of wanting to trust other people, or like, you have an optimistic view on some of these things. And so I think as you progress through the process, you can just identify it quicker and then cut your losses sooner. I think is the best way I think about it.
The reason I ask is because I have a philosophy on this, and I wanted to run it by you.
Yeah.
I think it's because the older you get, the less you care about what other people think of you.
I think that is
I'd rather be respected now than liked.
I think that's true. I think that's a good perspective on it, for sure, Carl. I think I think you evolve past caring what people think and get into like I think you start getting into legacy conversations. Like
Mm.
how are you gonna, where's your legacy gonna go, and how are you gonna help people out? Like I'm always into people that going through business, and I still struggle with it because I give away a lot of my services, I give a lot of my time, and sometimes my business partners are like, why are we giving away all this time? And I'm like, I don't know, it just feels right to me. And it doesn't always have to have a something at the end of it for it to be a
Yeah.
productive conversation, like for it to be a productive use of my time.
No, I hear you completely. So with that being said, coming from, say, well, picking corn through installing software to then selling software because you realize the people around you were letting you down, to now running your own business, is there a particular mindset or belief that carried you that's been consistent in that, or has that changed?
Yeah, I think the mindset is just keep going. Like, like I don't always. I have like determination, and I have like I'm gonna just figure it out and get it done. And sometimes that is terrible to have because like you're wasting time and you're doing things. And sometimes it is like it's like that picture that they always show of like the miner that's digging, and like there's a diamond just on the other side of like that little like piece. And sometimes I'm always like, there's got to be that diamond somewhere, so I just keep digging. So I think for me, it is the doggedness of just getting after it. And I think the older I get, I try to do it a little bit smarter and better, but I don't know if I can always, I don't know. I just, sometimes the blue collar, hard headed person inside of me is just like, keep going.
See, I like that though, because that, I'm not saying that people who haven't had a blue collar start in life aren't hungry and driven. But like as you were saying, you back to picking, corn when you were a kid. I had my first job at the age of 12, unloading doors off a truck into the back of a
Yeah.
shop. My father
Yeah.
worked for the man who owned the shop. And that first gave me a taste of independent money that my mother couldn't tell me what I could spend it on. But two, it put
100%.
a work ethic in me back at the age of
Yeah.
12 and 13,
Yeah.
that I still carry now. Having
Yeah.
worked with you, you always had that work ethic. That was one thing I think that attracted you and I as being
Yeah.
friends while we were colleagues, was we were both in near competition with each other to have more productivity than the other one, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep your hunger for productivity alive? And I have a follow-up question to that then when you've done.
Um, I, I think today it's more about my own business and how to execute on my own business. And now that I see AI in place, and I see a lot of people, like I see opportunities where people have fear. So if people are afraid and things are happening and the market's falling down, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go invest more into the market, because I know that fear generates opportunity. And so currently for me, it's how to extend the life of what I can do. Like I look at people that work into their 70s, 75, like, and you see the process and you see how well from a mindset perspective they're running. So I think it's partly that. I've been doing a ton of biohacking lately, so I think that motivates me from a stimulation perspective. Um, and loving what you do. Like you can be productive and keep pushing if we have 6 clients right now and we run their sales teams and we execute on process and we just see them evolve and get better. And for me, that makes me happy. And so I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, enjoy what you do is half fixed, and it doesn't always feel like work. But something you said there about the fear, I've always liked the phrase that everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah, 100%. It's the only thing that holds us back.
Yeah, that voice in your head is never positive, and you're
Yeah.
never going to get rid of it. You have to be able to curate an argument against it. So it
Yeah.
goes, what if I fuck up? Well, what if I don't?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
see, but the what if I fuck up will always be there.
Yeah.
I've just got
You always, you always have to look at that, and you always have to tell yourself, like, what's the worst possible scenario? Like in sales, and I tell this to most of the people I coach and educate, like, ask for forgiveness. Like, no one's going to be mad at you when you're bringing revenue in the door. Now, they may not like the way potentially you bring revenue in the door, or you structured the deal, or whatever it is. But I've always been of the mindset in revenue that if I can generate interest and momentum in the deal flow, everything else will just play itself out.
Yeah, you can always fix the deal flow.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So the other question I wanted to ask you is, and this is, I'm asking you this from a very, very personal perspective, because it's something I struggle with a lot. How do you deal with achieving targets? And I'm not talking about, your sales team gives you, here's your 10 million number this year, and you go and you hit your 10 million sales. I'm talking about when you set yourself mental or physical targets personally and you achieve them. Because I've done this, and it has, although it's joyous for a minute, and then it's hard.
Yeah. So once again, I think my wife has helped me out a lot in this, because I've had the same challenge. It's planning before you get there. So there's two parts of it. There's enjoying the journey part of it, because I think a lot of people see the end goal and that's what they're going after. But it's enjoying the process and the journey of it. And before you get there, make sure you're setting your next goal. Because if you don't set that next goal, you're always going to be like, it's going to be great for the moment, but not for the eternity.
I like that. That's special, actually. So set the next target whilst you're achieving the one you're in. Yeah, so it's like product lifespans. They don't all have to be linear. You can have them in kind of working together in Congress.
Yeah, like right now we'll be looking, for the next 6 months what we want to do, and then like it's interesting as your kids get older. Like, you go through the child phases of it, but now we're going into the adult phase of it. And we haven't been at the adult phase of children, right? So it's super cool because you can like talk to them about politics, you can talk to them about work. My daughter's working for a law firm. She can work from home. She can work for her firm when she's at college. Like, I'm like, when I was at college, I was like working at a restaurant. She's working at a law firm remotely in her dorm room. You know what I mean? So like there's this evolution that's happening, but if you don't continuously like set the next goal before you hit this goal, when you hit the goal, you're like, okay, like you have this adrenaline and drop happen, and then you got to like set yourself up again. So then you have that gap.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. You're reminding me of something. There's a comedian I love called Jimmy Carr, and he said, it's not the destination and it's not the journey. It's who you become on the journey.
Yeah. That's a good way to think it. Yeah. And look at it, like, I think in that journey, and this is something I struggle with myself, is like, I'm like, okay, we built this path and here's this journey on this path, but that path also will have forks in the road where you're going to need to make decisions. And it's okay if like you make a wrong decision. Like, back to the fear conversation, like forget about the fear side of it. Like sometimes you just got to make that decision.
You've reminded me of something else there, and I think you're the perfect person to ask this, because you have gone out on your own, and you've gone out on your own not in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
When you had, you went out on your own with a family and with responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
So I think you're the perfect person to ask this question, because I tell everybody I mentor that life sets you up for the highway. Right, you go to high school, you go to college, you get on the on-ramp, you get the corporate job, you go up through the ladder, and then you get off the highway when you retire, right? But the highway has on-ramps and off-ramps the whole fucking way along it.
Yeah.
And you can always come off the highway, try something else, and if it doesn't work, you can take a ramp back onto the highway. And again, I think the thing that stops people taking that off-ramp is fear.
Yeah, so it's the unknown. It's unknown.
Can you talk me through what made you see through the fear and take that plunge?
Yeah, it was actually doing it in parallel. So the reason why I was able to do what I was doing was the concept of like this place of having multiple jobs or doing things after work, or like being able to help out. Like at first it was just helping out people, like friends of mine that had companies and they needed help with like sales or like what they were doing. So I would just help them out. And then I was like, well, why can't I start charging, $5,000 a month for, doing it? So then I had like some extra pocket change as I was doing it. And then as I started going through the process, I'm like, well, if I ask like 2 or 3 people and I can charge like $20,000, $10,000, then I can get to like $20,000. Now I can start replacing my salary with that process. So I think sometimes it's hard if you just go blind off the ramp, because you don't know what's down on the other side. But sometimes you burn all the bridges, and that's the only way you succeed. So I had understanding and knowledge that it would work, and here's the real thing is I will bet on myself before I bet on anybody else any given day of the week. So
I know about you. I've seen that side of you. I think that's why I always felt in competition empiric with you, because I'm the same. It's like, screw you, it's me in this fight.
Yeah. I believe in myself more than anything else, and I believe that I could get it done. I wish I did it sooner from a transparency perspective, like probably a year or 2 before. I wish I would have went out and did it on my own. I also wish I took other risks throughout my life. As much as I appreciated Oracle, like I hated Oracle. Like I didn't like the process. I didn't like having to sell more internally. It wasn't a good environment for me. I'm more of like the startup guy. I'll ask for forgiveness later, that kind of stuff. And Oracle just doesn't allow you to do that work.
Agreed, 100%. This is a question I'm asking for other people because I don't have kids. So has being a father changed your outlook? Has it changed your risk appetite? Has it changed your work ethic? Has it changed, or what has it changed? You tell me.
Yeah, that's risk is an interesting one. I think in the beginning, definitely risk, because and I think your first one is different than your second one. So we have 2. And I think your first, like, it's just like what's happening now, and you have to evolve. You don't know what you don't know, and there's no good book for it. It's not like there's a book on like how to raise kids or what to do and how to do it. So like everyone's got their own little world on how you do it. I think what has changed more for me is as I see them grow up, seeing things that they do that either are part of my wife or part of me. And I'm like, do I really do that? And then you have to question yourself, and you're like, okay, I do that. And that may not be the best thing to do. And I think a lot of people think it's about what you say, but it's so much about what you do and the things that you do, and they see everything and you just don't realize it. But I also think because they're older now, people have this perspective of loss. Like a lot of people that we talk to, as their kids go away, they don't have, no one's in the house. Like they have this loss. And for us, my wife and I talk about being fulfilled and seeing them be fulfilled. If your children are fulfilled, you will be able to be fulfilled and move on.
You've done your job.
Yeah. If you don't see them fulfilled, then you will not, you'll have regret.
Absolutely. I love that. It's like, there's a lot of people end up then living absolutely through their children.
Yeah.
It's like friends of mine who got married. There's people I know who got married, and we used to joke back in Ireland that there's certain couples who got married that became this bicranial judgment machine. They'd be like, me and Jane think, you know what I mean? Like that they
bicranial judgment machine. I had to tell my wife that. I love that one. Yeah.
And then their kids, like it didn't matter what their kids did, or that they were the best in the world at it. Right.
Yeah.
And they just live through their kids. And you fear for them because your kids in their teens now, in their 20s. If they don't come around every day, you're going to be lost. You put everything into them, which is a great trait in itself. It's so altruistic and everything else, but you still exist.
I don't think so. I think it's you do them a disservice. And look, I grew up with a mom that wanted to be in the middle of everything and live vicariously through what I was doing. So I feel that function. I probably would have been the same way if my wife wasn't like, no, this is their life. They need to do their things. And so when you take a step back and you are in awe, and back to the learning conversation, like learning every day and not being afraid for your children to be smarter than you. And I think a lot of people don't go down that path. They're like, they can't be smarter than you. And that's not true. Like,
there's a lovely phrase I heard is, your dad is the only man in the world who wants you to do better than him.
Yeah. but be true to that statement. Like,
Yeah.
how do you be true to that statement? Because it's funny. My daughter asks me all the time. She's like, "What was your grades in college? When did you graduate? When was your first job?" And she always wants to do better than I do, and
That's
I love
awesome.
it. It's like
That's
it's really
awesome.
fun to like have that conversation.
So we're going to come to the end of this in a few minutes, but there's one thing you said there that really it triggered an emotion in me about my own family. And it was about being the father that you can be so your kids can see it. And just to give whoever's watching this a real world example of that, my father lost his job at 50 and then went out and set up his own company. And when I was 39 and moving to America, all of my friends, out of a place of love, were saying to me, "You're too old to go start again. You're too old. Like you go to the other side of the world to start again." And what they were saying was, "I'd be scared to do that. Why can you do it?" But I'd seen my father do it a decade older.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
so to me, getting up and failing was just another aspect of trying.
Yep.
So giving your children that, them seeing you do it, is so powerful. It changed my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. And my wife has her own business. She does her own thing. Like, I do think it's important for people to realize that you don't have to get stuck in that on ramp of life. Like, especially now, there's so many opportunities. I mean, hell, like if YouTube was around when we were kids and we were able to learn, like you can get full educations on all sorts of stuff on YouTube, and you don't need to be, going to classes or going to school. In fact, I actually hypothesize that school, like what we understand higher education to be right now, will not be the same in 5 years. It can't be. Like, we're not learning
No.
enough.
Well, I mean, there's nothing stopping kids going home and just dropping it all into ChatGPT and getting the answer anyway, right? So you have to
Yep.
find a different way to engage them.
Yep.
So my second last question to you is,
Okay.
is there anything that you think has differentiated you from your peers? Whether it's an attribute, a hunger, or just, I know, you tell me.
I think it's I've always had vision and strategy. I don't always get the execution side right, but I'm always thinking and going around the corner. Like, one of my interview questions I ask everybody when I go to hire people, I say, "Do you like to play checkers or chess?" And if they say checkers, I have a hard time hiring them, because well, you think through things, like there's a strategy around chess that you have to like really project out many moves ahead. And so I think that's part of it. I also think part of it is I don't like to give up. Like, I don't give up very easily. And I see 98% of the people don't put the work in. Like, a lot of people would say to me, like, "Why are you going to give up all your frameworks and like all the work that you're putting in?" I'm like, "Because I can tell them what to do, but they have to actually go do the work. Like, it doesn't matter what I tell them to go do. Like, they're not going to do it."
100%. There's another friend of mine, Todd, and he's hands down the best rep I've ever seen in my life. He's incredible. In fact, I'm interviewing him next week. And he used to put up tips and tricks on LinkedIn. And I said to him, "So why do you do that?" He goes, "Because they won't fucking do it."
Yeah, they don't do it. I remember social selling was this big thing like 10 years ago. And I did it for a long time, and I saw it for a little while. And then, like, it's still a thing 10 years later. And so I actually, tying it back to where I'm learning today on AI, like AI, what is happening with AI today, it's just scratching the surface. And if you learn how to do some of the basic fundamental foundational pieces, this is where people get it wrong. They want some big easy button, or they want like some extravagant process. Like, sales is super simple. Understand your ideal customer profiles, know your buying personas, and deliver like what's your value proposition. If you can get like those three things down, oh, by the way, have an agenda before you go into a meeting and send a recap within 24 hours. Like, stuff that is not glorious. It doesn't, like, there's not like this big, I have to go throw things into GPT and come up with this beautiful PowerPoint. And so, no, do the simple stuff, because people buy from people, as well as delivering the value that you're delivering back to them. And so I just think people don't do the simplistic things well.
But I think they complicate the follow-up too. I try to explain this to people. If you're asked 5 questions in a meeting and you have, and this is only my take, right? But if you have answered 5 questions and you have all 5 answers, pretend you need to go and get the answer to 2 of those.
I love that.
Double check those, because then
I say that all
come
the time.
back the next day. You keep the lines of communication open.
Yep.
You get to email them, but when you email them, you get to think of the question you forgot in the meeting. You get to ask that, and it just becomes an organic thing. Whereas if you answer all 5 questions, then you have to dream up a new reason to reach out to them the next day.
That's something I learned early in my career, because I wanted to answer every damn question, but I learned early, like, and even when I send a recap out, even if I've answered a lot of them or I've gotten a piece of data, I'll put the data wrong in the email to get them to respond to me. Like, no, it wasn't. We're doing 200 million, not 150 million. Like, you'll just like put random things that they'll say no to. And
I always, if somebody asks me for information, I put homework on the information. Like, there's 3 questions in there, and if they don't answer those questions back to you, there's nothing there. They're just trolling for information. Yep. Especially now, there's a lot of that. I think selling now is very, very difficult. I think there's a lot of things that are, when we were selling at Oracle, or even before Oracle, people needed salespeople because they needed information to be provided to them. Today, information is everywhere. So it's like, they don't need somebody to tell them what to do. They need somebody to make it easy for them to potentially buy whatever the value is that you're delivering. 100%. So look, we're coming to the end now. So first off, I want to thank you, Dale. You've been a great peer. You did this one thing on LinkedIn, which I really respected. I used to look for them every Monday. You see your Monday motivation. You call somebody out who was a motivational person to you, and the reason why, and I just thought it encouraged me to really call out more of my peers and thank them publicly for stuff. There's just things you do by nature that are really, really cool. You're somebody I've learned from a lot. So thank you very much for sharing your wisdom here. Thanks for spending some time with me on a Friday. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anytime, be happy to come back and give Irish goodbyes anytime. Fantastic. Well, we are going to have, sometime at the end of the summer, we're going to have like a live debate with 4 or 5 guests. So I'll keep you in mind. Yeah. But I'll come down to Miami. Yeah, we'll do it live. Yeah, absolutely. I'd sponsor with my own brand of vodka. So the last thing we do here, I'm going to ask this question. As soon as you answer, I'm going to hang up. So the question is, we always do this. The last question, the Irish goodbye, is we're about to get up from the bar. We finished our drinks. We're about to go home. There's a bit bar napkin on the top of the bar here. What's the piece of advice you'd write on that napkin for the person who's going to come and sit down behind you? Don't be afraid to take a chance. I love that. Dale, thank you so much. I appreciate you greatly. You've been a wonderful friend and a mentor, so thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a good one. Bye.